us their views. So I'll moderate or facilitate that session where I'll ask them questions. That will be for the first 25 minutes or so, and then would allow the second half for Q&A. So that's where you come in. If you have any questions for them, any contributions, any thoughts, then we can make this very interactive. The hope is so together we can progress the issues related to SME financing on the continent. So with that, let me bring in the two panelists, please. If you can join us, if you can give them a round of applause, please. So one can sit here, and then the other can sit on my right. Thank you. So to kick things off, I would let them introduce themselves. So I'll start with my panelists on the right, please. If you can just give a bit of introduction, who you are, which company you're coming from, location, and a bit about your expertise.
Okay, no, thank you so much. My name is Akwesi Obin Ejay. So I'm an executive for risk at Absa Bank in South Africa. I'm also the chairperson for the Africa Youth in Tourism Innovation Challenge and an advisory board member to the Africa Innovation Hub based in Namibia. So yeah, happy to be here, and hopefully we'll have a meaningful discussion. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Johnson Owari, and I'm the Deputy Managing Director for Carl Bank. I think that in terms of the discussion, I'm expecting that I will be able to contribute to some of the concerns, being an indigenous bank and with my background, having done SME financing, for quite a long time. I've seen them from the micro through the medium, and I've also done something in the area of the corporate side. So I've seen the entire spectrum, and I've done this for over 20 years. I believe that we can share some of our experiences and see how we move this topic forward. Thank you.
Very good. Now, before we jump into things, I want to explain why SME is important, particularly connecting to the theme of the conference this year. As you may have seen, the theme for the conference this year focuses on three key sectors. So one, we have SMEs, we have the youth, and then we have women. A lot of the research has shown that we need to unlock a lot of the talents and opportunities and hidden prosperity potential within these three different groups to be able to accelerate Africa into our next phase of economic growth. And that is important because we are hoping as we unlock the opportunities in these three main segments, we'll be able to improve living standards across the continent, and that would help us move closer towards our goals of prosperity. So that is why SME is important. SME financing, we selected as the topic for this particular discussion because a lot of what we need in that sector is economic related. If we believe that if SMEs are able to get the funding or the financing that they need, they'll be able to then improve, generate more revenue, grow their businesses. That creates more job opportunities for many sectors, youth and women included, but for really everybody. They pay more taxes, that helps generate revenue and contributes to our communities to be able to grow. So this, I think, is a very important topic, and I'm hoping that our experts will lead us with the discussion, and then in the second half, you get to come in as well. So please, let's all put on our thinking caps and move forward. So let me first start with you, Johnson. You've been in the sector, you've worked with SMEs for decades. Can you please highlight for us, from your point of view, what are the 2 or 3 key challenges that you see that prevent SMEs from getting financing or funding to be able to grow their businesses profitably?
Thank you very much. So I'll start off with something that there's a lot of research on, and yet it appears that we don't have a solution for. And I don't know whether it has some cultural undertones, but the research calls it information asymmetry. Very simply, the information that the SME has is different from the information that the bank has. So the SME understands the business very well, and they know that even if they close their eyes, this will work. The bank doesn't understand it like that. The bank sees a lot of obstacles. But a bank is not lending based on collateral. If you meet a good banker, it's lending because of the cash flows. So if the bank cannot see a clear path where the cash flows are coming unhindered to repay the loan, the bank is unwilling to give you the money. So if the bank does not understand what you understand, the way you understand it, and the basic principles for risk management, if you don't understand it, it's a no. You are not doing it because you don't appreciate the difficulties along the way so that you can put mitigating measures to ensure that the loan gets repaid. So information asymmetry is critical. Also because our people may not want to give all the information. Or sometimes we think that the banker knows what we are talking about. But for a lot of us, we understand banking, we don't understand the nuances in your business. So if you are not able to provide adequate information such that the banker will have clarity and be on the same page with you, that is where you get your transaction declined. And it's a very fundamental and basic principle in lending. So as much as possible, it's important that SMEs are able to explain very well and walk the banker through the entire process to ensure that the banker is aligned. That you will get the bank to come along with you. That's one. Two is documentation. Now, in my experience, I used to finance an exporter, very big exporter who had, in those days, pineapple exporter who had a lot of farmers who were producing for him. And he used to say that you bankers, you sit in your office and people just come and present documents and then you give them the money. But those of us who are actually doing the work, you don't want to give us the money. But the truth is that the bank needs some form of documentation, at least some basic documents to understand and be able to track and be able to follow your trajectory. So there are people, and I must admit, in our work, there are people who understand that. So before they come to you, they've put together their document, everything that you will need. And it may not be that he's doing a great job on the field, but he can anticipate what the bank wants and be able to put together a document, makes it easy for the bank to understand what you're doing and be able to very quickly come to a decision. But in most of our cases, our people may not even have their own documentation. So if you're asking them to bring documentation to enable the bank appreciate the business better, the information that comes is not adequate. And therefore, again, it creates that challenge and comes back to the asymmetric information, and it makes it difficult for the bank to come to a decision. And that is where you find that sometimes you will say the bank says bring this, bring that, you keep bringing, and finally they wasted your time. Because your documentation by itself is not enough to bring the bank to a decision point. The other thing that also I will talk about as a third point is the financial literacy of our entrepreneurs. And this is research-based, okay? It's one of the key things that we need to work on, which is that today some of you are here, but there are a lot of people who are in their businesses thinking that this is a waste of time. They are very good at what they do, but they don't appreciate, the things that the banks require in order for them to access financing. So research shows that, some of our entrepreneurs don't have the required literacy to enable them prepared to access financing. And sometimes, I remember I used to lecture maybe 15 years ago at the Ghana Export School. And, even people who export, they just come in, they just get somebody says, I'll buy. And they are getting ready looking for money to export. You don't even understand the kind of instruments that you need to, employ to ensure that you are covered. So people export and then the proceeds or repayment becomes complicated for them. And I've seen a lot of that. So that level of literacy, that level of educating yourself to understand what the financing, requirements are, what a bank will be looking for, or even what will protect you as a business person is not there. And these are some of the things that I believe that if we educate ourselves on, we will be able to do well in our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Johnson, you've outlined 3 key challenges that seem to prevent SMEs from accessing the kind of financing that they need to grow their businesses. Now, let me shift, and you are mainly based here in Ghana, so a lot of the work that you've done here is in Ghana. And Akwesi, you've done some work, focused now mainly in South Africa. From where you sit, what additional issues do you see as impediments to the financing of SMEs?
Yeah, thank you. I think Johnson has covered most of it. I'm just going to echo or just add on to what I've observed. First and foremost, banks do not fund ideas. Right? I think we sit in certain corners and we evaluate proposals, and people come up with this funky phantom idea that I woke up and I felt like coming up with this business concept. Banks do not fund ideas, so they fund somebody who has been able to identify a gap in the market. So the first thing that we'll typically look out for is what gap are you closing in the market? And why that gap is so important that a bank should be able to, or any investor for that matter, should throw money or their time or resources at you. Right? So I think that is one of the very first fundamental gaps that we pick up, that you need to be able to identify an innovative solution that closes a gap in the market. And then we go on to ask the question, what is your unique selling proposition? What are you selling? Call it your USP. What is your USP? What is a unique selling proposition? That thing that when you hit anybody's doorstep, they go, wow, what is that? And typically we don't find that, right? Once you've been able to articulate that, then who is your total addressable market? Where are you going to sell this product? So people have got all these nice products, they've got all these nice innovations, but there's no ready market to sell it, right? If the banks or an investor does not see these gaps being closed, they'll probably not see the business viability or the sustainability of a model, right? And then one key item also is, when you want to sell something to a bank or to any investor, we typically come in there and the proposals are full of just concepts, right? If you want to tease anyone into giving you money as quickly as they can, you need to have an MVP, right? You need to have either a proof of concept or a minimum viable product. Either an unfinished version or an untested version of what you want to get out there. They want to be able to feel it, see it, interact with the product. But more often than not, we get a lot of conceptual ideation stage type of proposals. And it's a high risk for a bank to throw money into something that they cannot see, they cannot interact with. So before you go to the bank, even if you haven't fully launched the product or service, make sure that you're able to bring reality, bring some touch to the product, so they could also just be in your world and empathize to see what you are feeling as a person looking for the money. And then also, the last bit I want to touch on is your financials, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, SMEs, just don't know how to put financial statements together, right? So when you put this stuff together, you need to be able to say that here are my financial projections, and my break-even point is here, etc. Remember, the bank also is an investor, in their key interest. As much as they want to fund youth entrepreneurship ventures, they want to be able to support the community, they want ROI, right? So if you are taking money, how soon are you going to be able to pay me back? And if your financial projections do not articulate your value chain and your return journey, it makes it very difficult for me to just assume that $1 million being extended to you as a loan will be repaid back in 10 years, 15 years. I can't make that assumption. So that's a very key component that needs to come in. And then you have to also put the skin in the game. Most people haven't put the skin in the game. I sometimes refer to that as sweat equity. I don't know if you know what I mean. Sweat equity can be quantifiable, not in terms of monetary, but in terms of time utilization. So the banks will usually ask you, what have you put in? And people say, I've got nothing. You've got a lot in there. Because it's taking you time to put a proposal together. It's taking you time to do the feasibility studies to see how viable the service or product is. So you have invested in your product or service. And it's usually very justified to quantify your sweat equity, even if it's not monetary. So I just wanted to add those to the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Akwesi. Please, you can clap for them for the insights they are sharing. So you've highlighted 3 key issues on your side. The lack of proper financial reporting or statements that may help the bank or the financial institution to understand the SME, to be able to to provide the funding that they need. And in some cases, it goes a bit back to what Johnson was saying. There could be information asymmetry. That simply means you, the SME or the entrepreneur, may have a lot of the things in your head, but it doesn't just transfer to the banker who may be working with you to provide funding. And so you may need to fully explain so they fully understand what either you have in the business, what the potential is. So when they are giving the money, they know they are putting it to a good cause and that they will get paid back. That's the ROI that you were referring to, which is return on investment. That if I give you, 1 million cedis to help support your business at an interest rate of, let's say, 10%, I'll get my 1 million cedis back after 1, 2, 3 years, plus the interest that I'm charging to provide you the funding. So thank you for those insights. Now let's move a step beyond that. So imagine we've been able to resolve these issues. We've resolved the information asymmetry, the documentation part. Some SMEs get help from advisors and consultants to put together the information they need, and then they send all of that to the financial institutions. And yet still, one of the main complaints we hear is it takes a long while for SMEs and entrepreneurs to hear back. Me, the SME, I see a great opportunity, maybe like your export business you were supporting. There's an opportunity that has opened up in Europe. I need to organize and ship some extra pineapple products in the next 2-3 months. And I come for the financing to help grow the business. I provided all the documentation, and then the long wait begins. So here, let me start with you, Akwesi. What really causes what seems to be the long wait on the other side when SMEs then are waiting for the funding? And what can they do to help to mitigate that or to help shorten that processing timeline?
Thank you. So the life cycle of an approval is not static. Johnson will tell you it's not. We'll get back to you in 2 days or 3 days. It's all dependent on the amount you're asking for, the information that you provided to the bank, If we have to come back to you and ask you for additional stuff, it means you've gone back to the queue again, right? So you are now delaying your own turnaround time for a possible response from the bank. So I think that's why we stress the importance of clarity in your submission, that you make sure that whatever you are submitting, you've been teased into collecting and collating all the information that you need to be able to help us to make a quick and informed decision. The second bit is internally, we also have governance to follow, right? So when you send these applications through, we have to vet it, we have to score the application, we have to go through a committee, depends on what the amount you're asking for, to opine on the viability of that application, and then it goes through a few hands before the approval process gets done. And it's just in order to protect the bank's interest that we're not also recklessly lending money to somebody who would potentially not be able to either fulfill their obligations towards the repayment or will not be able to fulfill the obligations towards the expansion or the business growth in the long term. So there are internal governance processes, but mostly the hurdle or the setback is usually on the customer side in terms of the provision of evidence and in a timely basis. If all your stuff is together and you send it on time, you shorten the life cycle of when you get approval. But there isn't a clear-cut time when we will give you a response. Unless you're asking for 10 Ghana cedis, then maybe we'll just make a different decision.
Okay, so you've helped us to understand it a bit more. I think later on we'll come back and see, what else we could do to be able to fast-track some of these things. Now, let me shift to Johnson, and let me touch on a slightly different issue. That is non-performing loans. Just as I'm holding the financial institutions accountable for the long processing time for some of the loans, imagine a situation where the SME is very fortunate. They've gone through the process and they've actually been given the loan. But we see instances where the loans are not fully repaid as expected, which then creates problems for the banks. So what do you see as the main causes of some of these NPLs beyond what we typically just hear? And in your point of view, what can we do to address, to lower the NPLs? Because then that creates more recycling opportunity of the funding that you, a bank, would have to be able to finance more SMEs.
Okay, thank you very much. I think before coming to that point, I want to touch a bit about the first question, and then I'll jump into the NPLs. So again, regarding, why these approvals take long for your facilities, I think we started with the documentation. There's a bit that also depends on us as the banks. So we need to know our customers well, okay? If we are close to the customer, or your relationship officer is close to the customer, then the relationship officer is really well versed in the customer's business. So before the request comes, the bank understands the need. And so that rests on us. The other part that rests on you will be that, we know of some businesses that, as for the bank, they won't help you. And so they don't get close to the bank. But banking is relationship. So even when you don't have a need, you get close to the bank. The bank understands your business. So as you work, where there is a need arising, then the bank already understands your business. And make it easy for your request that comes to be quickly approved. And I think that what we have done in Carl Bank also is that based on our experiences with SMEs, we have been able to put packages together, very simple packages. So if you need money for shipping of your product, we have pre-shipment loan. That is very simple, a simple checklist. You bring A, B, C, D, we give it to you. We have post-shipment where if you have shipped and you feel that you can't wait for the payment to come in, then, we also help you. Very quick one. We understand the SMEs. If you have also some work that you've done already and therefore you're waiting for receivables, we give you money for receivables financing. Very quick. And then also if you have a contract, okay, we will isolate your financials because we think that maybe your financials become a problem. We look at the specific contract, look at who has given you the contract, is the person capable of paying? If the person is capable of paying and you also don't have a performance problem, then we just quickly, narrow it to that contract and not look at the challenges you have with your documentation or your financials and everything, and we finance that contract for you. So we have packages just based on experience with the SMEs to ensure that we can be quick, in responding to you. And because we are an indigenous bank, our approval hierarchy is not long. It's quite short. So we just quickly are able, to respond to you. Now, coming to NPL, NPL is a major issue here, in our country. And I'll start from the bank as well. It's our job to make sure that we put mitigating, measures in place so that you are able to pay. I know some people don't like that. It appears that you are overly restricting me. But the truth of the matter is the bank must make sure that the loan that is given is one that will be repaid. And so we look at your processes, we look at the repayment, potential of the transaction. So right from the beginning, we are anticipating what can go wrong. Okay, and that is where sometimes you don't get the loan and you're unhappy, because we want to ensure that we reduce the non-performing loan. The other thing that we realize, which is of concern, is that there are some people that, as Akwesi said, they don't think through their, project. They quickly want to get to the bank for a loan. And sometimes they are in a testing mode. It's not something that they have done over time and they understand and they are expanding. They themselves are testing. And therefore, they want to take the bank on that testing route. The bank will not want to go along with your testing. That's not what the bank does. So then that's a challenge. But if a bank makes a mistake and gives money, to that one, then you know that the person is learning on the road. And so he gets to a place, hey, I wasn't expecting this. And then, there's a delay in repayment, there's a delay in performance, and that ends up affecting the loan repayment. For a bank, it's debt. The bank is not part of, the entity in terms of equity. So the bank expects payment to be done at certain times. Now, one thing that we should all be very honest with ourselves is also that there are some of us who just don't care. I'm not paying now, or I can't pay, or, there are various reasons. Some people just are not paying. And that, for me, my experience, is a serious concern. I have given loan to a very senior person, who was, controlling, some of the associations. I'm talking about 15 years or so ago, where this person was a senior person in our country leading SME, development. And when the loan was going bad and there was pressure, the person said that, but the bank gave me money and they were not coming to my factory all the time to monitor. So the question is, you've taken a loan. If the bank is not coming there every week to monitor and make sure that all your sales are coming to the bank, you have an obligation to make sure that at the end of the month, you are paying your debt. But to think that the bank is not monitoring enough, and that is why you have defaulted in paying, that is a challenge, right? And there are those that just don't want to pay. And that is a problem. The flip side is that the few good ones who are willing to pay, you'll be surprised that the banks are always chasing them to give them money. And that is what, in our market, we don't realize. That there are customers that the banks are always chasing, throwing money at, because they pay. When they take, they pay. So this is something that you want to encourage all of us, that if you want to build a business, learn to pay and not create NPLs for the bank. As long as you pay your debt, the bank will give you more. The other thing that I will say before I pass on the mic is that, when you are an SME, we understand that businesses go through cycles. We understand that businesses face challenges. When you are having a challenge, sometimes you even see it ahead. The bank will not know. Call your banker and tell them that this loan that is due in a month or two will be a difficult one for me to pay. How can we handle it so that on due date, if I'm not able to pay, it doesn't become a problem? We don't do that. That creates NPLs or non-performing loans for us. But if you are able to tell the bank ahead that this is a challenge I see in my business, in 2-3 months, I won't be able to pay. The bank has a mechanism internally to help you, to support you, and to ensure that the loan doesn't become due on your head under pressure to pay. So I think that level of communication is also one that we need to do to help manage NPLs on our books. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for Johnson for those insights. I'm glad you've touched on a couple of good things. One being the different products and services that you are offering tailored to specific needs of the SME. You mentioned the pre-shipping and a couple of other ones. And I hope that the sector would be able to develop more of those to be able to support our SMEs. I also want to clarify that even though the discussion here seems to be focusing on the relationship between SMEs and banks, we do recognize that there's a bigger ecosystem out there. And I just don't want to kill the ideas that some of our SMEs and the youth, the women, and generally people may be having. But I'm hoping that on the continent, over time, we'll be able to develop that ecosystem that goes from angel investors who are able to support ideas, even when they are being, birthed and incubated, where they have not even been tested yet, but very good ideas that can then be funded even at that stage. Not the banks, because the banks don't deal with that, but angel investors in other jurisdictions do. And then move beyond that to having venture capital firms that can provide additional funding to move from pilots into startups, and then private equity companies. Is everything okay? Okay. Private equity companies to come in and help the businesses to grow further, and then on and on. And different forms of financing. Equity takes a different path from loans and debts, which the banks then come in. So that we have the full ecosystem that can help SMEs to optimize their capital and financing to be able to grow profitably. Now, I know we've spoken on this side for quite a while, and I'm sure you may be having questions for the panelists. I have additional ones, but I'll put them on hold for now. And at this point, let's open up. If you have any questions and you want to ask, please, more questions than comments. We'll have time for comments later on. Please, do we have another mic that we can give? The lady here wants to ask a question. Please, another mic. Let me give you a mic to start.
Thank you very much for a very insightful panel discussion. I've learned a lot today. And just like the moderator said, there are lots of ecosystems in Ghana. For instance, I'm a founder of an organization called NCVO Ghana. It's a non-profit organization whereby we support other non-profit leaders. We have over 500 non-profit leaders that we've supported over the past 8 years. So my question is, somebody might say that non-profits, let's say an NGO, you don't sell, you don't buy. So when you go to the bank for a loan, how are you going to repay? But at the moment, the nonprofit space is really changing in the sense that we are selling our products. When we fancy, I charge people. So there's money coming in this. But obviously, it's not like a business, like not profit making. So my question is that an avenue or what should I say, a possibility of the banks thinking about that, because most of the time non-profits are left behind a lot. And we're actually doing a survey, and when you look at the amounts of people that non-profits are employing in this country, you'll be amazed. We are really helping the nation, but most of the time we are left behind. So that's my question. Is there a way that a non-profit can, come to the bank and, just like you said, sometimes, for instance, when I'm doing consultancy, when I have, a contract saying that maybe so maybe £10,000 will be coming, we'll pay £10,000 in a month's time. Can we come to the bank with something like that, being a non-profit organization? Thank you very much.
So I don't know which of you would want to take that. Maybe Johnson. First of all, do you finance NGOs or non-profits?
So, as a matter of fact, in my experience, they hardly, access credit. Because for a lot of them, it's important to understand, the articles of their corporation or their business. For a lot of them, if you look at their documentation for setting up, they are not supposed to be even borrowing in the first place. So that is the real challenge. But if you are set up in a way where you can borrow, we can have a discussion based on, the circumstances of your business. And we believe that working with you, we should be able to craft something that suits your need. Basically, for banking, it's about, cash flows. As long as that business is not barred from taking that facility, if your cash flows support what you are asking for, why not? Now, I remember there was this elderly man who had come looking for a loan. And, he was asked, what is going to use the money for? He says, look, young man, I have a big property I'm giving to you. Okay, so, why are you asking me about, the cash flows? The property is, 20 times how much I'm asking for. When we probe further, he said in Chi, what are you going to use the money for? Mikudi. That sums up the mentality that you're just going to get the money. Later on, how the payment will come is not an issue. But if you can prove to us that there's some stream of cash flows that will end up clearing that exposure, we can work with you on that. And your articles permitting. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to give the opportunity to others. So please, and as you ask your question, briefly mention your name and then ask the question.
Okay, thank you very much for everything you've shared with us. So my name is Regina Reko Thompson. I work in the labor migration space, and so I'm always looking at how these irregular migrants, some of them when they return, how they can really do well in Ireland. And you just mentioned that they are unable to put their documents together. That's why some SMEs do not get the funding. Is there a medium put in place by these banks to educate these SMEs, or they always have to walk into the banks to find this information? And if there are none, is there a plan to set up some? Because I know that some bankers have some salespersons going out talking to people about loan facilities and all. So I would want to know so that we can chip into it.
Thank you. I don't know, Kwesi, do you want to touch on that?
So, thank you for that question. So the migrant issue is quite a very sensitive one, if I can put it that way. Especially when it's across, because we in South Africa, we do have a lot of migrants from the neighboring countries, be it the Lesotho, Swaziland, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, etc. Right? And when it comes to banking, they almost cut out of the ecosystem due to their legal or illegal status in the country. And those are regulated, government regulations that we cannot override as a bank. But one of the means that we do tease them into testing the waters is if you have a service that you think the market is ready to consume, they usually partner with local South African citizens, and then they're able to jointly go and apply for a loan, either through that contractual obligations with the South African person, or you have to then get your papers right before you can come to the bank. On the issue of education, the diaspora, I don't know what happens in Ghana, but in other parts of Africa, there is a huge diasporan community that does this ongoing education on a regular basis to try and sensitize the migrants on one, not just on financing stuff, on their rights in the country, the labor issues that they could potentially be facing, accessing funds and loans and et cetera. Those opportunities are there, but I'm not sure to what extent that happens in Ghana. Maybe Johnson can just touch on
Johnson,
that a bit.
Particularly on the education bits. Yeah, and I understand. He's generalizing it because, again, we have participants from other countries here, and it's probably the same issue that's repeated.
Yeah.
So, Johnson, if you can touch on that.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So I'll tell you, at Cal Bank, for instance, we have a women's unit who focus on working with women a lot more in advisory capacity, where such people could be advised and walked through the process and prepared, for any financial support, if there is a need. Also, we have our SME department. We have people who provide advice, and we are also, set up such that, we are doing community engagement. So, for instance, if you have a group like that, we are able to meet with them and walk them through what is required. So we prepare them. And recently, there are discussions that we are having with, the University of Ghana, where they are getting some also support, working together to be able to train, entrepreneurs. So groups like that could benefit, from some of those trainings so that they get prepared. And when they are ready for financing, then it becomes easy because then we know them. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Dr. Boateng, founder of the King Solomon International Academy. I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and I'm so happy that my dear sister asked that very pertinent question, because we those in the diaspora, especially Ghanaians in the diaspora, I want to focus on that. We do a lot in order to establish businesses here and there. Now, not too long ago, I tried to put in an application to one of the banks. And interestingly, they were asking for my credit report from the United States. So, and I do understand that in Ghana, as we speak, there's a system being put in place in order to have people draft their credit reports, and accuracy and tracking it and all that with the implementation of the Ghana card and so on and so forth. So I believe that it has come to a time bringing, say, my credit report from the United States. Why don't we have something here that gives a record of, say, vis-a-vis the things that I've done in Ghana, my loans and everything? Because my credit report from the United States doesn't have loans that I've secured here, being here. So I think that, the bank should be doing more for those in the diaspora, because we hold the future. We're going to come back and build this country. Because today, if I look at my organization and the number of employment is created, if we get these funds and resources, it will go a long way to help in, bringing down the unemployment rate in the country.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? I want to give opportunity to the flanks. So, you have a question? Yes. Name and then question.
Okay, thank you. I'm in the person of Cranton Ransford, representing Jackstone Company Limited. My question is, for instance, a young person coming from the university, in fact, even during the service, the person couldn't save anything because maybe transport issue and other stuff, and the person is even coming from afar, and he has to also pay the price because everybody needs the service for certificate for tomorrow. Is there any way that the bank, if the person applies, the bank can coach the person and help the person come up with a business idea, groom it for the person so that later on the person takes over if the money is recouped, like how we do the build, operate, and transfer, if that one is also happening at the banking sector. Thank you.
Hello. So I think that's a bit of an unusual question. I don't know if you guys. Otherwise, this session predominantly is focusing on SMEs, and I think some of the comments and question, this particular one, tend to hinge more on personal loans. Now, the banks can give personal loans, but remember, we are looking at ways that small businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises, that's what SMEs stand for, can accelerate their growth, grow profitably quickly by getting financing from the bank. So let's try and focus more on that. I see a hand on the other side, and then I'll come back to this section. And again, name and then question quickly, okay? Withhold comments.
Hello, my name is Robert Akoto Amuafo. I also support leaders in this area. And I like one of the things that one of the speakers mentioned around internal governance. So what role does internal governance, lots of SMEs, as far as I've worked with, don't have these strong governance systems. But just could you highlight a bit on what I expected when it comes to governance of organizations and SMEs in accessing funding? Thank you.
That's a good one. Akwesi, please.
I'll just zoom in on it. So when it comes to the internal governance process, remember for every facility that a bank gives out, it exposes the bank, right? So we always managing our risk appetite in terms of how much are we willing to plow in any specific sector, be it agri, real estate, etc. So our exposures are constantly being monitored. And we have to also be conscious of what we call concentration risk, right? So we don't want to also have a situation where 80% of our loan advancements are all in one sector or one industry. So we continuously monitor these limits to make sure that we are within appetite. So when you put a loan application through any financial institution, and I suppose Car Bank will probably have the same processes in-house, they have to now check our appetite to fund within that sector, right? And post that, it also goes through vetting. We have to, if it's a sole proprietorship, then it's just one individual that owns it. If it's a company made up of directors, there has to be screening to make sure that each of the directors are compliant with the applicable local legislation, right? From a sanction screening perspective, if the person has a PEP component in there, there is politically exposed persons, process that follows, etc. So those are internal processes that must happen so that, one, we demonstrate that we know who we are dealing with. And then two, also look at your financial modeling, right? Look at whether what you've submitted from a cash flow perspective and what your expenses are as a company, your liabilities, your future cash flow positions, etc. We put all that picture together and then we assess your affordability ratio, whether you're able to afford this loan that we advance you, etc. Post that, we'd have to go through a committee to just from oversight perspective to make sure that the decision that the creditor or the lender is making is one, aligned to the strategy of the business, aligned to the strategy of the bank, and that it does not necessarily overexpose the bank to any potential future losses. We also watch our impairment figures. So impairment figures, if we are able to, our loss ratio determines how much money we're gonna write off every year. So when you apply, we also check our impairment levels. Are we saturated at that apex of our impairment position, or are we able to absorb more risk at that point in time? So all these considerations feed into what would tantamount into a decision whether to give you the facility or whether to decline it. And other processes that I can't really talk to you about.
Okay, so yeah, Akwesi, thank you. The short of it is, I think, based on what I've seen, SMEs just need to take governance a lot more seriously than we do now. There's a lot of mentality around, it's my business, and I control it, and I get to do what I want to do. But given that there are other stakeholders involved, if you are going to get money from a bank, it's actually not the bank's money. It's money from depositors. So that's just the public. And that is why they have a responsibility to make sure that it's paid back. And at that point, it's your responsibility as an SME to make sure that it's not just you controlling and calling the shots, but that there are others who are helping you. There are best practices for governance around so that you are managing things properly with good advice and guidance so that if you take the loan, it will be paid back. You had a question?
My name is Joe Jackson, and sitting here and listening to you this morning, I had a sense of deja vu. In the mid-90s, an organization called the APDF had a similar session, same issues, reminding I was then a co-founder of a software SME, and same things happened. Same issues, same advice to SMEs. You could repeat word for word what has been said here and what was said 30 years ago. My question to you is, what's missing? Why has nothing changed in 30 years? At that time, I was in my mid-30s. Today, I'm in my mid-60s. And I sit here and nothing has changed. So my question to you is, what is missing? Thank you.
Very, very good question. Johnson.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think the good thing is I happen to know about APDF. But what I would say is I've been in this space for, let's say, 26 years, okay? And I understand a bit of what SMEs have gone through. What has changed today is that you have a crop of bankers who are to meet the needs of SMEs. So I'll give you an example. In the past, and I'm talking about in the past, in the early 2000s, when, somebody walks to you and say, I have a business, sometimes they even say, I have a contract. You ask him, he doesn't have, any structure, like Akwesi said. He doesn't have any structure. He's the main person, he's running his business. And per our models internally, you just don't meet it. So we have a certain, credit application process that by the time you get to the first 2 levels or so, is rejected because we just don't see, you don't meet all the criteria. The person may not have a structure that he's operating with. Okay, it's a one-man business. The person may not have collateral. The person does not have financials. And you're asking yourself, nobody's willing to listen. Today, we'll look at it differently. So today, somebody walks to me and says that, I managed to get a contract to export artifacts and doesn't have anything. And then we go the extra mile to see the person who is buying, who gave you the contract, is that person known? Is that entity known to the bank? And as saying, known that they're doing this business where they're doing it. And the bank now structures it. And we do this. The person doesn't have any collateral, doesn't have anything to show, no financials. And yet, the bank is able to look at the contract and say, because you can produce the artifact, because you know where to get the artifact, the bank is able to provide funding. And I've seen some is worked perfectly and the person has grown because there was a bank that could look at the business and say, you can produce the artifact. The person who is buying we know can pay. That is enough. And I think that is a trajectory that the banks have come to now. And it's different from the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Akwesi, can you touch on briefly?
Yeah, no, thank you. That was a very brilliant question. It took me a bit to really grapple with a possible answer. But I think from my perspective, what hasn't changed is that Ghana is still a cash economy, right? It's a very important dimension of how you build a relationship with a bank. People only knock. It's like being a father-daughter, father-son relationship. If you only knock on my door when you've got a sore, I probably will not treat you with the same level of affection as a child that is always near my laps, right? So the cash economy system, which still persists in Ghana, distances a person from a relationship building perspective to the bank. And if you don't bridge that gap, to Johnson's point earlier, that KYC, I need to know my customer, I need to know you, I need to know you. I'm willing to take a risk on you if I know you, right? So if you have some money in your house or your business is generating some small revenue, and there's an opportunity to save that money, you're creating one step closer bond with the bank. Until that culture shifts, we're going to have the same conversation. So there is an onus on the bank to make a concerted effort to get closer to its customers. But more importantly, you know yourself better, you know how your business is performing better. So at any point in time, when you see a window of opportunity to build a relationship with the bank, take that leap forward. When you need that loan, the conversation will be much more easier today than it would be if you didn't have any form of contact or bond with that bank. So I think that's a very important point, but the structure of our economy doesn't really assist us in bridging that gap. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Akwesi and Johnson, in answering those questions. I think we'll allow 2 more questions because of time, and we'll try and wrap up. So please give it to him.
Okay.
So name and then question quickly.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Charles Hagan. For the purposes of this conversation, what I do is to help SMEs. I run a not-for-profit that helps SMEs run accounting and finance. You meet people that have so brilliant ideas, but do not understand the basic fundamentals of bookkeeping, right? And so that goes to the core of getting them credit worthy. In running some of the programs we do, we find difficulty in getting partnerships and sponsorships for these things. My question to the bank is this. In having these engagements to get SMEs credit worthy, as the bank, because then some of these institutions or ideas, once funded, could repay within the shortest possible time. What is the positioning of the banks in helping to train these ideas, these SMEs, these startups, into getting them to a financial position on their books that makes them credit worthy? Because the ideas are good. What is left is transitioning those ideas onto traceable documents that are presented to the banks. So what is the positioning of the bank on that? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we touched on some of this a bit earlier. I don't know if there's any new idea to add there. But I think we've got to recognize that, you see, our ecosystems are not fully developed. And so in many instances where in other jurisdictions, you would have other types of institutions helping from idea generation all the way to a mature business. We don't have that here. You know, we don't have angel investors. We don't have strong venture capital firms. Private equity, we have some. But again, they developed only like in the last 10 years or so. So we need to fully develop our ecosystem. And if the ecosystem works, by the time you are mature enough, where you have predictable cash flow to satisfy the needs of a bank, the others in the system would have helped you. Until then, we all have a lot of work to do to handhold the SMEs to come up. They are going to be crawling, and you're going to try to help them to start walking so they can also run. But to get to the bank, you have to start running. Any last question? Maybe from this side, and then we'll wrap up. You've run already. So afterwards, the panelists would be around to engage with you one-on-one. Let me come to this section and let me allow this woman to ask, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Kezia, and Thank you so much for this presentation. My question has to do with financial literacy. So most of us youth, when we come into the system, we have nothing in mind when it comes to our finances and how to manage. I just wanted to know, are there various platforms that the youth can leverage on and then learn, get to understand how the banking sector works, how to manage their finances, and those basic things, especially we the ones that weren't educated in the business fields, in the science fields, in the economics, and different other areas. Thank you.
Okay, I think the question is clear. Financial literacy. Johnson.
Yeah, so thank you. So what I would say is, I think I touched on that. It's not just about you who have started off from school. You know, research shows that even people who have been in business for a long time, their level of financial appreciation is not, up to where it should be. Obviously, because people take these things for granted. They are very good at the business that they do, but they are not, very literate when it comes to what is expected, to be done financially. So I think we touched on that. What we do is, most of the time, we have partnerships where, recently I was speaking on a forum like that, where we bring in people who have just, finished university. Some of them interns, some of them early career people. We bring them into a room like this, and then we have engagement so that we can walk them through some of the basics of finance. And the basics when you start doing, business. Even to the extent that as you are organizing yourself. So we look at it from people who are just completing school, national service, people who have just started working. So what I would say is that if you can get in touch with us, we will be able to put you in contact with those who organize these programs. And we partner with them and we share these ideas, without, any cost associated with it. That, for me, is where you should be targeting at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I also know locally that we do run a youth mentorship program wherein an entity goes and looks for people like yourselves wanting to tap into a specific skill set. And they partner with the bank, and then you get to stay for about 6-7 months to try and build a particular competency that you require. So there are those partnership programs out there that allows you to tap into the mind and hearts of the financial literacy program within a bank. I'm happy to talk to you offline and then just give you contact details for people that you can reach out to start that program.
Thank you. There's a question here.
Thank you. My name is Andy Sena Agbele. One thing I want to find out is there's so much non-performing loans within the banking sector. But over the period, for me and some of us have observed that some customers, they'll take money from one bank, they will not pay, then they'll go and take from another bank. I say that's because of non-collaboration between the financial institutions. Somebody take money from who is into the agri sector, takes loan, and he doesn't pay. He or she runs away to go and take from another person. But because of this experience, the bank tighten up their requirement for somebody else who want to enter into that field to take a facility. What are the banks doing to curb this situation so that all of us don't suffer from the mistakes of one or two people?
Good question. Johnson.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think the answer to that is pretty simple. What you're saying is more in the past. Today, we have the credit bureau. So in Ghana, you have 2 or so of them. So what it is that if you take a loan and you default, unless the bank involved is not reporting, but by regulation, the bank is supposed to record and report that, your loan. And therefore, if you are not paying, the record is there. And for every bank that is doing a good job, when you come to Carl Bank and you're looking for a loan, you must understand that we will check with the credit bureaus to find out your credit history before we grant the loan. So what you're saying in the past could be the case, but today is not. Most banks will go to the credit bureau and be sure that you have a good record. But obviously, I agree that if your sector is seen as high risk, there's a lot more rigor, in reviewing your request. That is something that we believe everybody will do. So that's what I will say. But in terms of credit check, today we have a place to check. Thank you.
And I think, Akwesi, if you would confirm, South Africa has been ahead on this development. So now there are credit systems and their reporting mechanisms. And now Ghana card is more prevalent. You need it for almost any transaction. So as we improve on that system, hopefully we'll be able to curb this and make financing more readily available to all SMEs. Okay, I think you have a question here. Yes. Sorry, hold on. There's a question here. Go ahead.
So the question is, we know the banks can check, but can the individual keep a track of their credit record and how would they do that?
Yeah, I know, I'm not sure about the Ghana instance. It's probably still in its infantile stages. But I know out there in South Africa, it's a consolidated score. And the customer has login details to access that report. You also do get monthly reporting from the service provider to highlight where you stand. And even that's a comparative analysis of your average score relative to the area you stay in, relative to the country that you are resident in. And it's able to give you that view. So when you apply for any facility, you already know where you stand amongst the people that are localized around you. And I suppose when the Ghana one starts maturing, you start seeing much more segmentation and improvements being built in.
Yeah. No, so today, no, it doesn't exist, but hopefully it would evolve towards that.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ruben Otu. I work for SNV Ghana. I just want to find out, this is specific to CalBank, or perhaps others as well. We always talk about high-risk sectors. For instance, we talk about Ghana's agricultural sector being rain-fed and therefore high risk. So instead of tightening your measures or your rigors when it comes to providing facilities for SMEs in this sector, has there been any specific efforts on the part of the banks to improve the ecosystem for these SMEs to enable them to become low risk for investment by the banks?
Very interesting question. First thing I will say is that it doesn't take one bank to do that. It is a lot of investment. So we like to partner, and today we are having a lot of engagement with entities that support that kind of partnership, where we can work together to ensure that we lower the risk in some areas. The other thing is we like to work with, aggregators or groups. Okay, so you'll be surprised that, we have worked with, for instance, pineapple farmers, in the hinterlands, individual farmers. Why? We provided credit to them without collateral. Why? Because there is somebody, a major player, who has said that I work with these people, I can work with you to train and supervise them so that you reduce your risk. When we get that comfort because of that key person, then we are able to provide funding knowing that that person is taking the output, and therefore the person is also interested, the person understands the business, will work with the bank. I may not understand the particular farming area that you are into. I need somebody with that expertise. If we can get cover from someone or a group that says that we work as a group, the bank should come and work with us so that we believe that the expertise is in there and we have some level of certainty that what we are putting our money to, there will be a repayment. That is a requirement. Why? Because if you are an investor in a bank, you want to make sure that when we're giving money out, it is repaid. So we need that collaboration. And once we get that collaboration, you can be sure that the money that we have in the bank is meant to be invested. And we are always eager to look for opportunities to invest. So if you make it easy for us, we'll collaborate and make sure that we put in the required finances, and then we'll all win together. Thank you.
I have a question right here. Crystal.
Okay, so I think we'll make that the last question.
Okay.
We're coming up on 10 o'clock, so we can wrap up. Please
So
go ahead.
This has been a great session. My name is Crystal Jackson. I am on the advisory board for APN. And I represent the diaspora. So I live in Houston. And so if I'm interested in creating banking relationships here in Ghana, I know there are a couple of steps. But one of the things I'm most curious about is you talk about credit rating. Do you use the American system currently? I want to clarify.
So the short answer to that is no.
Okay.
There are credit bureaus that have been set up here for the local system.
Okay, great. So when you talk about what is a good score, because I don't know. I live far away, but what is a good score? Like what would qualify as a good score, a credit-worthy score here?
I don't know if Johnson, you can answer that. So generally, because our credit rating system is very nascent, at this point, what I understand is that essentially 2 companies that have been licensed, and a lot of the focus now is on corporate side, not on the personal side.
Okay.
And the focus now is at least let's get the corporate side working, and when that evolves, hopefully with a lot of the rich history, transaction information we're getting through the Ghana card,
okay,
we can start that for personal loans and transactions as well. So we have a long way to go.
Thank you. No, congratulations on your progress.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up. We are just getting to 10 o'clock. I'll give the final say, Johnson, if you have a final word to share, and then Akwesi will come to you, and then I'll wrap up.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that we've gotten some, great insights. What I didn't hear come out is, technology. And I think that is an area that we should all begin to think about because that is the world that we live in today. And as banks, Cal Bank, we're doing everything to put everything that we do online. We are making sure that even for you to access credit, you sit in your office, you should be able to submit your documentation and get your feedback very quickly, approved or not approved. There is research, recently done in Ghana here, which suggests that out of 300 SMEs that were interviewed, less than 5%, of the SMEs are actively using, the technological tools available, which means that it's very low. But it's important that we get familiar with these. We leverage on it, for visibility, and also we leverage on it available for you to engage us, and we'll make sure that we make your business, very seamless. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause for him.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Just in summary, I also wanted to add on that a bank has no vested interest to take an asset from you, right? We don't want to. So if you are owning a car or a home loan, etc., and you're not paying, it costs us a lot of money to repossess that asset, right? Because, for example, if you have a business car that you are utilizing and paying for, we have to send tracers to find you. We have to pay for storage. We have to auction the car at a lower cost. So all those overheads, if you think about it, it's not in our best interest to punish you. Like most people say, it's the banks and us. There isn't any such. By the time that we do that, we've exhausted all options of trying to knock on your door to get you to speak to us, and you have not opened the door. That's when we act. And lastly, I also wanted to say that when it comes to funding, funding must go beyond the paradigms of CalBank or APSA or anything of that sort. We are now living in a very multidimensional ecosystem globally. Start looking out for investment outside of Ghana. Start looking at cross-border sponsorships, partnerships, JVs, etc. If you are confining all your hopes in one jurisdiction, you're going to struggle. So just think broader. The broader ecosystem is countries that are outside of Ghana as well. And how do you tap into those financial ecosystems outside of Ghana to try and grow your business? There are investors, are not here, but there are investors in London, investors in Kenya, that may probably be tickled by your idea. So do not hold it against the limited resources you have in Ghana, but spread your wings outwards. And you never know, the world could become a much better place for you to tap into finance. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, my name is Eric Otu. I've been the moderator. And in wrapping up, I just want to highlight the important role that SMEs play in our economies. There are many, many, many tens of thousands of SMEs in Ghana alone. Multiply that by the number of countries across Africa. And there are many, many, many people that SMEs are employing. We think SMEs have trapped potential. And I'm hoping that the discussion that we've had here today is only going to help us progress how we can finance a lot of these SMEs to grow, but more importantly, to grow profitably. Whatever we can do, whether we are customers or whether we are stakeholders of these SMEs in other ways, if there are ways for us to give advice, maybe because you have a relative that works in one or owns one or any other thing like that, please let's continue the education, because the improvement in the financial literacy, as we have discussed here, is very important, because that helps them to organize themselves well with better governance. When you have the better governance in place, hopefully the financial reporting, which is a requirement under the governance structure, would be improved. The relationship with the financial institutions, and I like the idea Akwesi is saying, don't limit it to just Ghana or even just the banks. We have savings and loans companies, we have microfinance companies. Like I said, we have venture capital companies, private equity companies. The important thing is collaboration. How do we work together? How do we ensure we break down the information asymmetry? How do we ensure that we improve our capabilities across the board, across the continent, so that these SMEs, first of all, are doing well locally. When they do well locally, then it's easy to do the cross-border transactions and cross-border support that we need to help all of Africa rise and shine. So I'm hoping that in another 5-10 years, I'm not going to wait 30 years, Mr. Joe Jackson. I'm hoping 5-10 years, with all the technological improvements we have AI today. We didn't have that 30 years ago. We have WhatsApp to be able to communicate easily. We didn't have that back then. Let's make advantage of all these things that we have. And please, let's unlock these opportunities and let's propel Africa through SMEs, youth, and women to become the place that we want it to be for ourselves, for our own selves, and for posterity. Thank you. So again, thanks to all of you for coming. There's going to be a second discussion that's going to be organized by KPMG. So if you have questions for the panelists, they're going to step down and possibly be out of the doors, and then you can engage more so the discussion doesn't end here. But please, I recommend you stay behind for the KPMG discussion too, because it's going to be an interesting one. Thank you, and have a good day. Sorry, oh, you want a photo? Okay.
They offered thousands of members of their global workforce their own individually tailored AI-powered career paths, helping them discover their unique strengths. and teaching them the skills they need to thrive. Or this world-leading industrial manufacturer. With KPMG, Sophisticated performed an in-depth analysis of job data to identify and augment role-specific tasks for individual employees, and supported adoption throughout the business, freeing up their people to focus on the work that matters, and setting out a blueprint for becoming an intelligent enterprise. These are the first steps towards unlocking human potential. Where could your people take you next? You can with AI. You can with KPMG. In the AI era, you can unlock a whole new world of value. Transform untapped possibilities into unparalleled results. Take this established manufacturer, looking to capitalize on decades of research. With KPMG and AI, they analyze tens of thousands of documents, pinpointing critical information faster than ever before, setting them on the path towards a new era of production, and bringing innovations to the market ahead of the competition. Or this global retailer, who wanted to unlock value in their customer service. By harnessing AI, they looked to improve experience and cut costs at the same time, freeing up their people to focus on driving new sales and creating the conditions for unprecedented growth. This is just the beginning of what AI has to offer. The first step towards becoming an intelligent enterprise. You can. You can with AI. You can with KPMG. In the AI era, you can master complex technologies, solve critical challenges, enabling you to focus on growth. Take this marine logistics company, keen to capitalize on vital operational data spread around the world. With KPMG and AI, they paired a bespoke tide prediction algorithm with machine learning software and smart devices to optimize departure times, streamlining their global operations, generating valuable insights, and raising the bar for integrative technology in their industry. Or this agricultural firm, who wanted to enhance their capabilities for the modern day. They leveraged satellite imagery with AI image classification technology to strengthen harvest predictions, boosting efficiency, redefining their working practices, and bringing their organization into the digital age. These businesses are transforming into intelligent enterprises and setting new standards for their industries. What more could you achieve? You can with AI. You can with KPMG. With KPMG, you can accelerate your AI journey. Move at speed, from idea to implementation. Take this world-leading oil and gas company, tasked with processing and analyzing a sea of diverse data. KPMG deployed a sophisticated AI analysis ecosystem to close the gap between data retrieval and insight generation, and enable them to work faster, increase capacity, and create more value for their customers. Or this government agency, whose employees were overwhelmed by repetitive tasks. With KPMG, they identified hundreds of opportunities for AI optimization and tailored productivity-enhancing solutions, jump-starting their transformation into an intelligent enterprise. With AI, organizations are realizing their potential in ways they never knew were possible, bringing projects to life in a fraction of the time, with support at every step. What new ideas could you deliver? You can with AI. You can with KPMG. In the AI era, anything seems possible. Creating value, transforming industries, even saving lives, and changing the way we do business. From small steps to solving seemingly impenetrable problems. You can. You can with AI. You can with KPMG. In the AI era, you can remove to thrive. Or this world-leading industrial manufacturer with KPMG's sophisticated AI assessment tool. They performed an in-depth analysis of job data to identify and augment role-specific tasks for individual employees, and supported adoption throughout the business. freeing up their people to focus on the work that matters, and setting out a blueprint for becoming an intelligent enterprise. These are the first steps towards unlocking human potential. Where could your people take you next? You can with AI. You can with KPMG.
for over 60, 70 years into something that is now an opportunity. And we also have seen, especially in the last 10 years, and even more intensely in the last 5, the maturity of digital platforms that have significantly lowered the barriers to trade across our continent. So those are opportunities. However, we also know there are challenges. There are still significant non-tariff barriers that exist. Even the CFTA itself, the implementation and the consistency of it across multiple different countries. So there are lessons to learn there. So there are challenges. And today we want 30 minutes for you to surface your questions, and then we'll try and get answers from the different perspectives from the panelists. You can see it's a very, we'll invite Dr. Nanakwesi Amwako, who is the business-to-business sales director, to give us the keynote address.
Good morning. Right. So I guess you start putting it up, but before I proceed, my name is Nanakwesi Amwako. I usually hide the doctor because I am not practicing it that much, so let me hide that one. But in terms of Nana, I usually go to the village, and you know what happens. All right, so I bring you greetings from the group chairman. And you know, Casapreco is under the Pinnacle Group. And the chairman, some of you might know Dr. Kwabinejie. He started the business way back. We'll delve into that as we progress. I'm now retired, relaxing in his village at Boniama. Also greetings from the group CEO, Mr. Samuel Abudo, and then greetings from the MD of Casapreco, Richard AJ. In fact, he is supposed to have been here, but due to one or two things, he asked me, don't worry. But I'll try and manage myself within the shoe. Right, so the story of Casapreco cannot be told in one day, you all know, but we have tried as much as possible to compress it, to make it more impactful. Some synopsis as to the beginning of the business, what we have done so far, and what is ahead of us, so that at least you can pick some perspectives, and then we can go into the question and answer, and then give you more flesh. So if you are ready, please, you can roll. So, this will be a problem. So as you can see, in 1989, the business started with Dr. Kwabinejie in his garage at Nungwa. Those of you who've heard the story before, a very small business. Everything was done manually. Then in 1998, there was a breakthrough, and that was the Almighty smiling. The reason why they are smiling, please, I don't know, and I don't want them to say it now. Maybe when we finish, we can have that discussion outside. Alomo came in, and it was the flagship of the business up until date, leading, and driving revenue and then volume growth. Then in 2000, they started the production from our semi-automated machines, so from a manual to semi-automated, so it means that we are gathering momentum. Then 2011, in your car driving to see your girlfriend. And you know where I'm going. So 10 minutes to your girl's place, and you know that something can happen. Quickly, you are looking for that small sachet of alumo just to spice you up somehow, so that when you get there, things can move quick, right? So there was the need for that. We saw that opportunity. We invested in that for the sachet. And then did some backward integration. So if you look at the way we produce our juices, you will need carbonated so that we don't run out in terms of the materials that we need to produce. On top of that, we put up a plant that allows us to produce the preforms. So the container that you have the water in and the cups, we have those plants on our site, and we produce for ourselves. so that we don't import, because it takes a while to get your raisins in, or you buy the preforms from, let's say, China. By the time they get it, they're even contaminated and affect your production. Then we took another step, that instead of buying finished alcohol from outside, why can't we refine our own alcohol? So if you go to Tema right now, we have a plant there that refines alcohol that gives you pure 96+% of E&D for our production. So up until 2023, we use our own alcohol to produce, and we sell to other customers in Ghana. So that is one of the strategic plans that we took to terms of customer. We all say customer is the boss, right? So sometimes they will insult you, but you keep quiet because you know what you want. So we gave them the opportunity to test center, both online and offline. So they reach out to us, they tell us, my drivers need banner, you see a 5 or no mama 2. They will insult us, and we will take it, build on it, because so we have this that is also there to support our approach in terms of using the customer as the focal point. Aside that, we have multiple ways of distributions, but we've taken a core one that goes beyond where our distributors go. So we are able to reach out to the areas that are quite difficult for the distributors to penetrate. And this is also to extend our footprint and to make sure that the customer doesn't walk too far away to get the products that they desire. And then we've put some feet also on the ground in terms of officers. Their work is to check for quality and complaints. So they go out there into the bars, into the wholesalers, into the distributors, and pick real issues so that we can resolve them quickly for the customer. The next thing that we did was to have a brand that is trusted. And I remember there was cargo bitters, there was pusher bitters. And sorry, I am not saying that they are not good, please pardon me. A lot of bitters. But Alomo has stood the test of time. So people shifted. They went to the pusher, they went to the cargo. But I don't know whether from the cargo they have to descend through a limousine or somewhere. Now they are back to Alomo. Build trusted brands. Brands that does not taste sour today, tomorrow sweet. So that is one of the hallmark of Casapreco business. The next thing is innovations and adaptability. And I spoke about this earlier on, that we innovated. If you look at the bottles, the big, the small, for convenience. So last week, I was doing some small skirmishes and I realized that I would need alcohol in my pocket. I am a chief, so I pour libation. You don't believe that. So I got a small one, back pocket. So whilst I was going, I was doing the libation pouring, praying to the ancestors to help me so that I can stand firm and not fall. So the point is that we innovated to meet all category of consumers at their touch points. So you can see we have something that fits the kids, something for the elderly, something for somebody who is so old that you think cannot do anything. Let Alomo enter the system. Trust me, you will believe that person. So innovation. And then finally, you cannot be in the market without earning the trust and credibility. And how do you do that? And I'm proud to say that the first one that is on, we are doing it with KPMG. So we have whistle blowing setup for transparency. And interestingly, I'm the chairman of the committee. And every day I'm receiving the cases. All right. So whistle blowing. And it is not internal alone. We've done it in such a way that even suppliers, customers, distributors are able to feedback direct to KPMG that this is what is happening. So that immediately we look at it, resolve it, and still gain the credibility and the trust that we require. And then, in terms of certification, the FSSC is there, and then we have the ISO certification too is there. And the good thing is that because we do co-packing means we pack for other companies. So Coca-Cola, we pack. We pack for a company in Nigeria. United Dark Beverages in Amsterdam. We pack Magic Malt for them. So they all come and do audits. And that audit also help to build the credibility and the trust. So this is what Casapreco has done so far to earn the trust. And now anywhere you go, we seem to be the benchmark. If you want to grow, look at us and grow. So where is our footprint in terms of Ghana and Africa, and let's say the world? We are in Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Kenya, Netherlands, and as we speak, there are discussions to get ourselves into the US. So we are going into a partnership with a company in Ohio, and hopefully this year that should kickstart. And then you find Alumo when you go to Ohio. And in terms of Ghana, we are dotted everywhere you go. They will say MTN, right? But this one, everywhere you go, is Casapreco. You'll find us anywhere. All our products are visible and present. Okay, so in terms of our production process, I won't bore you that much, but the bottom line is that it's a rigorous one in terms of the inputs coming in into the factory, finished products going through the warehouse. Then we have the trucks that do the distributions to the distributors, and then the van sales also does another distribution. Now, there's an element of business to business. In fact, that is me. This is where I stand. It's a new baby that was brought in 3 years ago, and I'm in charge of that, trying to expand the other leg of the business to rake in more revenue. And then we do the export, and then we do domestic market. So this is how the distribution works, our strategy. Next. Okay, so what are our strategic focus? So in terms of innovations, we are not sleeping on it because we are all dynamic. You know, you wake up today, you want to drink the bottled water, the big one. The next day is, when I buy the big one, 5 minutes, it is hot. So I want the small one. So if we get stuck with the 1 liter, we will be losing market. So hence why we do a lot of innovations to diversify ourselves and ensure that we touch the consumer at every touch point. Okay? Here is offer new and exciting beverage offerings, and it could be pack sizes and then or different tastes altogether. Non-alcoholic beverage segment, we will expand the non-alcoholic segment. It is still growing because now people are running away from alcohol. The ladies will say, oh, maybe I mean no one sound. But interestingly, they'll be drinking RTDs. You know RTDs? There's Smirnoff and things. So you, the ladies, after church, you will go and eat fufu and mutu, and you are telling the boy, Mimpensa, and then they put, what I'm trying to say that people are drifting away from alcohol to the non-alcoholic. So it's a segment or a category that needs to be looked at because it's expanding and it's growing. Okay? And then route to market is key. Your people on the road and how you get your products to the final consumer is also key. So we are building on that. And then the international market. We see opportunity in the Sahel regions, but quite deadly. The last time we sent trucks there, they detained them for almost like 1 month. And they were burning tankers and killing people, and my boys were there. I couldn't sleep. Okay? But I am sure that with all disruptions that are happening within the sub-region, we will get to a point where it will end. And then it will be an open market for all of us. All right? So we'll expand and ensure that we get our fair share of the African market and even extend it into the globe. Okay? And then the business-to-business segment that I spoke to you about, there is something in the pipeline, I won't mention it now, but it is also going to come and add up to the segment that I control, which is the alcohol, the CO2, the preforms and the carbs, the co-packing relationship. Something else will come. Next time when we meet, I will let you know. Okay, so this is the ever-popular Alumo. After this, if you want to drink, let's have a quick meal and then let's see. All right, next. So just show you brands. Awake. All right, move. And then the ever-popular energy drink. When you see this drink, who comes to mind? No, Shatawale. All right, it is Shatawale's baby. He loves this. And you know the energy and fire he puts on stage. Don't misconstrue it to be any other thing. It is this. Okay, I have disabused your minds. All right, thank you. I'm sure I'm done. Yeah, and then the malt and all that. Thank you so much. This is the story of Casa Preco. Okay.
Good morning once again. My name is Anne. I'll be your moderator for today. And in a few minutes, I'm going to call up our co-panelists or our panelists for today's session. So we already have Nana over here. So thank you so much for the presentation. It's very clear why Casa Preco is an enduring brand in Ghana. Thank you so much. Okay, so next up, I'm going to call Osei Owusu Ansah Jr. So Osei is an associate director with the Strategy and Operations to Ghana, PMP professional, master's degree in finance from GIMPA, in experience working in management consulting, numerous projects in the private and public sectors. So a round of applause. Next up, we have Elvis Ebe. He's the head of product development and innovation with PAPS, and he has extensive experience in digital payments, financial technology, product innovation. Thank you. And his work focuses on developing inclusive payment ecosystems, leveraging emerging technologies, and enabling trade and financial integration across the continent. So a round of applause for Elvis. Next up, we have Dr. Kobina Iwa, and he's a Pan-African business leader, an entrepreneur with years of experience all across the continent in diversified industries. He's the board chairman of Oya Group, the largest money lender group in Africa, operating in Nigeria, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, and Kenya. He's also the economic advisor to various African governments, and he holds a PhD in economics from the University of Zurich, a master's from Harvard, and an engineering degree from Cornell. A round of applause for. Next up, we have Seth Chum Akwabwa. He's the CEO of AGI, and he's a business development consultant by profession with a degree in economics and a master's degree in business administration. He joined the AGI as a business development consultant and was elevated to the position of Chief Executive Officer in 2011. And he has since been leading the AGI team in policy advocacy, provision of business development services for industries, and heads of the entire directorates of the associations, including 6 regional branches. A round of applause, please. And then lastly, we have Isaac Kwe. Isaac Kwe is the head of the small and medium enterprises units with EcoBank Ghana. He's an accomplished banking and finance professional with over 2 decades of experience spanning corporate, commercial, and consumer banking. He holds an MBA in finance from the Paris Graduate School of Management and a BSc in accounting from the University of Ghana. He's earned specialized certifications in advanced credit management, debt recovery, structured finance, and a whole lot more for Isaac. All right. And so I think we'll get right into it. In terms of the context, pretty much we are talking about cross-border expansion for SMEs in Ghana, right? And while we are very clear and understand the promise of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a lot of business still struggle with the how. How are they supposed to scale into other countries? And so the first question goes to Dr. Kobna Iwa, and then I'll come to Nana Kwesi Amwaku. So it says that from your experience, what needs to change most for SMEs to truly take advantage of this opportunity, referencing the free trade area, Africa Continental Free Trade Area?
No, thanks so much for the question. I think a number of things, need to happen for SMEs. The first one was really discussed in the previous panel, which is access to credit. It's really, really difficult for SMEs on this continent to get access to credit. I don't know what the other panelists in the previous session were talking about, but it's almost impossible. I have so many examples, across a number of African countries, and not just Ghana. So it's really, really difficult. So that needs to change. You need to have money to be able to move your business from Ghana to Nigeria. It's the fundamental issue. And then, the other ones are less of a significant point, but, management, right? Being able to scale different systems. You're probably micromanaging. You're going to the office to scale across borders. For the Ghanaians in here, personal experience, is that I honestly think there's a notion of Ghanaian excellence that exists on this continent. And that has really, really helped me in every country that I go to. Just by being Ghanaian, doors open to you. I went to Malawi to set up one of our offices there. Went in there not knowing anybody. Mozambique, went in there not knowing anybody. I was going for a central bank license. I walk into the central bank, and there's a bust of Kwame Nkrumah sitting in the central bank. And I was like, wow. So, for the Ghanaians in here, I think, you should also rely a bit more on this. And I think that is going to plague any SMEs. And I think that really has to change. The banks have to be a bit more receptive towards providing facilities for small businesses. And also the management style needs to change once you scale across. And for the Ghanaians in here, leverage on the Ghanaian excellence and make it happen.
And so we are coming to Nana. If you could give us a response to that as well.
Okay, so for cross-border business, looking at us as an SME, probably now we've gone past that place anyway. It's been the difficulties, that you encounter, within the process. And one of the things that we have encountered is trying to go into the market but lacking capacity. So you will build your capacity before you can go in. And you know how long it takes to build a capacity. If you want to import, let's say, a cruise lines from Germany, it takes a while, feasibility study and all that will happen. So that in itself is problematic. Now, the next level is competition. So you bring Alumo Beaters today, and there is what we call a Me Too brand. So a brand that is done to mimic your product, but it is not like it. The end is to try and disrupt your market. So how do you protect and shield yourself against competition? So this is also one of the things that actually affects us in terms of you expanding in local market and also into the external market. Then when you come to the whole after and then the ETLS, Equal Trade Liberation Scheme stuff, there are two key things that I just want to mention. So the policies are there, the articles are there, but they are never respected. So for example, we started selling in Alumo by way of exporting from Ghana to Nigeria. And then it got to a point, they said, no, they want local content. So you either come and produce in Nigeria or you stop. So now you move into Nigeria, you are producing. They said, no, you can't produce sachet. That is a preserve for the local companies. So at any point in time, there is something that is blocking you. And I call it not adherence to the policies that we ourselves have set out in the AFTA agreement. Okay, so basically these are the things that you will see troubling us. Yes, we have a way of circumventing, but it pushes your strategy at least one step backwards before you are able to get to where you want to get to. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that submission. And then now I move to Osei as a management consultant. So I want to know, how should SMEs think about sequencing when it comes to the internal capabilities that need to be strengthened before they enter new markets?
Thank you very much, Anne. And I think the point Nana and Dr. Ewa have made is very clear and succinct in terms of how or why businesses are not able to scale. So just to add a bit.
So in the last 5 years, what we have seen is advancements in technology. Has become that likes of the banks, the switches, even fintechs, and we've been able to make payments faster within seconds. People can now move money from Ghana to Kenya, for instance. We've gone beyond that. We've also seen that a couple of technology has emerged in recent times. We have blockchain helping with settlements. We have blockchain helping with digitalizing documents, trade documents like LCs, bills of lading, and a couple of others. We see the cryptocurrency coming in. We see AI also playing a role. Stablecoin, you hear about it in the news, but people are already using it right now in the markets, right? Whether we like it or not, the generation we're in are already trading in those currencies. The second bit is the emergence of fintechs. Leveraging on what the banks have done in the recent years, you see fintechs have created mobile app. I heard somebody in the first panel session saying that over the last 30 years, he has not really seen changes. But to be honest, a lot of fintechs have built applications that have helped SMEs in the registration of their businesses. I don't know about Ghana, but in countries like in East Africa, West Africa, Nigeria, a couple of fintechs have built applications